Today on the Daily Charge, Twitter down in the dumps reporting revenue stall in the third quarter, and Zuck's out of luck. Facebook founder and world-renowned punching bag goes back to Capitol Hill.
Welcome to the Daily Charge. Today is Thursday, October 24th. I'm Ben Fox-Rubin.
I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Rich Nieva.
And here are today's top stories. Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg sat through a 6-hour grilling on Capitol Hill yesterday, with lawmakers taking the billionaire CEO to task for a slew of issues, including data breaches, misleading political ads, and its new Libra cryptocurrency. Okay, so this was a lot to get through, guys, but ultimately, what were your impressions? Like, did you think Zuck did okay? Did he mostly survive?
He took a beating, for sure.
He did take a beating. He definitely took a beating.
Yeah, look, I think he's probably expecting that, right? Like, the first time he came around to Congress, I think he got off relatively scot-free.
Totally.
Most of the criticism was leveled at the congressmen, right, for not knowing their stuff. And so this time around, they boned up on it. They did their homework, and Maxine Waters in particular, right? She just
started
leveled
up.
them.
She just started by, she's the chairwoman of that House committee, and she basically just set the tone from the beginning by just going after him, not only over Libra, but on a variety of different topics. So he got hit from all sides, and I think ultimately, I watched the entire 6 hours, and ultimately, he was not unscathed at all, like the first time around, but at the same time, I mean, he just got walloped over all sorts of things. So whether this is going to result in anything is the other question. You know, is it just a hearing, or is it going to result in some sort of action?
I remember the last time the most viral moment was like him responding to Orrin Hatch with Senator, we run ads. And so I think,
which was so clueless.
And with a little smirk on his face.
Yeah, and so he just didn't want any moments like that, and he got that.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, Congress
didn't want
any.
Right, and they
they
seemed much better prepared. Their questions seemed to be far more sophisticated. But at the same time, I would give Zuck credit for not appearing overly defensive. Every single time he was interrupted, he just kind of let them take their time back and just lay into him. So again, it was a hearing. It's not like this was a criminal case or anything. There isn't anything really weighing over him specific to the hearing, but I think if anything, it really does suggest, like, for antitrust concerns or some other regulatory issues, at least the House is taking a posture that, like, hey, we're not going to be very friendly to you. We're going to take a much more aggressive approach.
Well, you've been covering cryptocurrency for a while, and I'm curious, like, to get your take on this. Like, Libra, is Libra dead, or is it still going to be a thing? Because a lot of the major supporters like Visa, MasterCard, PayPal have pulled out. It's just a lot of negative publicity. Do you think this survives, or do you think Facebook pulls out and sort of like lets it go off on its own?
That's a great question. I think initially, maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, there would be these ICOs that would just come out with very little regulatory scrutiny, very little, attention to them. And I think especially because Facebook being Facebook, there's so many more eyes on this. There's a lot of concern about getting this right to make sure people don't lose their money, to make sure that this doesn't destabilize global monetary policy. So I would say, especially after the hearing yesterday, the certainty of Libra actually coming out is far less. Whether that is or isn't going to happen, it's hard to say. It's expected to come out sometime in the first half of next year. So there's still a little bit of time to figure that out. Anyway, next, more people are on Twitter, but the social network badly missed Wall Street's revenue expectations, as it seems advertisers are avoiding the site. Every single time we bring up Twitter on this show, I feel like it's bad news, and that's kind of a bad story for Facebook. Like, if Twitter was a better competitor to Facebook, maybe people wouldn't be trying to break up Facebook. But what are your guys' impressions here?
I mean, it's not really a shocker, right? Like, if the advertisers don't want to be on this platform, it's gotten pretty toxic. It's very insular. It's hard to get into as a newbie. Like, if you just join Twitter today, like, it's just a mess. Why would you even want to? Why would you want to stay in this place, right? Like, unless you're like us, all invested in Twitter and use it as a news feed. I mean, there are definitely some reasons, but it's looking forward, like, it's hard to see what the growth potential is here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing with Twitter is that Jack Dorsey has gotten really good at apologizing.
Right.
Yeah, they all have. all the text
But
videos.
like, you don't see a lot of action, right? There's a lot of apologies for sure, but there's just not a lot of follow up to that.
Yeah.
I would completely agree with that. And Dorsey has definitely talked a lot about trying to demystify Twitter in a lot of ways. Like when you're adding people at the very beginning of a tweet, you have to put a period at the beginning. These are really annoying and confounding things for any new user to actually get involved in. What's a hashtag? Do I have to use a hashtag?
Right.
But yeah, and on top of that, are they ever going to actually allow you to edit your tweets? They keep talking about that and then they never do. Is that going to improve their revenue or their earnings? I don't know, but
I feel like the
a frustrating thing.
The edit tweets announcement is like behind a glass case where like
some
terrible,
something
terrible happens. They're like, all right, guys,
we're just going to let you do
it.
it. Yeah. You would think they would finally do that, but anyway. Okay, so enough to chew over. Let's turn to the audience to get their takeaways. Who got the best shot at Zuck? Did he have any solid moments in the testimony as well? And how do you feel about Twitter's cleanup efforts? Have they impacted you yet? Sound off in the comments or at us on Twitter, and we'll tackle whatever you can throw at us. BVG, send us over some questions.
Let's go ahead and farm out there, too. I want to know what you think is a barrier to entry as far as social networks go these days. We were just talking about how Twitter, it's got different rules and things that are kind of inherited from the period before the @ symbol and all that. What features, and we'll stick with the term features, that are on social media right now, do you think act as a barrier to entry for maybe older generations or even younger, depending on your perspective? Do you guys have any insight on this? It's something I've been thinking about for a while, because like I know I went from, oh, Facebook is great, I'm a college student with fellow college students, to like, oh God, somebody get that your racist aunt off of my feed. Like that's where we've gone.
I think Snapchat is probably a good example of a platform that intentionally tries to be confusing for olds. And I don't know. I keep trying to get back into Snapchat and then I don't. It's kind of more, you guys correct me if I'm wrong here, but I've generally used it more as like almost like a form of texting to like a friend or, you know, my brother,
Snapchat,
as opposed to Snapchat, as opposed to Twitter or Facebook, which I don't generally use that often, where you just kind of like speaking to the public square kind of thing.
I actually don't remember the last time I used
same
Snapchat.
here. I mean,
really, you're the youngest one of all of us.
I was
Instagram stories. I
don't think I've ever used it regularly. That's the thing. I think, and a lot of folks are switching over to Instagram stories, right? Because that's basically the same thing. And so, yeah, it's in terms of the kind of cryptic thing, I would just say the culture in some of these social networks. Twitter almost has a language of its own. And that is big.
Instagram too.
Instagram too. And
like you would post a photo on Twitter that you would, or let me rephrase that. You would post a photo on Instagram that you wouldn't really post on Twitter. Like the Instagram photos are like you're always supposed to make them look pretty or whatever. I don't know.
Right, but just in general, like that, I think that kind of that language, that culture makes it really tough for any like newbie to come in. I don't know. Also, maybe I'm just old.
Yes.
And everything makes me feel old.
Yes, you are.
Maybe, Roger. Maybe. Zuckerberg mentioned TikTok as a serious competitor to Facebook during yesterday's proceeding. What do you guys think about that?
I don't remember if he mentioned TikTok at that hearing, but Facebook has definitely tried to prop up TikTok as a major competitor because obviously Twitter and Snapchat are much, much smaller.
Right.
TikTok is definitely growing really, really quickly.
Although now that they're congressmen now who are asking for investigations into TikTok, and it obviously its ties in
China, and whether that's a security issue.
Whether it's a security issue, whether it's a propaganda issue or a misinformation issue, there's a lot of scrutiny there.
Right. So I guess Facebook would love it if there was more scrutiny on TikTok, but I think
there's plenty of scrutiny to go around, though. That's the thing.
Every single one of these social companies, though, is tiny compared to Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook, counts their number of users in the billions, whereas a lot of these other folks, at least on a daily active user basis, counts it in, 100 million, 200 million, something like that. So it's really like small fractions comparatively. So that's why there's a lot of attention on Facebook, and I think it's definitely well merited.
Yeah, definitely.
So as far as perception goes, let's talk about the advertiser's perception of a given platform. Eric had this really interesting takeaway that says Twitter is too non-PC for many advertisers. In my opinion, that leads to questionable content, and they do not want to associate with that. Do you think that's really the case? Do you think there's like a preconceived notion about virtually every social media platform that advertisers go into thinking? And is Twitter actually the really most non-PC one out there?
Well, yeah. Twitter has the rap for it. I mean, I think Bob Iger's book, I think he mentioned that like when they were thinking about, Disney was thinking about maybe buying Twitter, they pulled back because of its reputation.
Its content.
Yeah, and back then when they were considering that was a couple of years ago, it was even more toxic and negative than it is today. So Dorsey has definitely made an effort to try to improve the site and clean it up, but I think most people would argue that there's still a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah, and I'd also throw in YouTube as another
Correct.
place with toxic content.
Although there are plenty of advertisers there, though.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've done a better job, too.
I would argue, though, so beyond just the fact that it's a toxic environment, I mean, Facebook, it's partly why it's in trouble. I think it's really good at getting information on its target audience for advertisers, which is why it's been so effective at selling ads. Twitter, I think, less so. I don't think they're not as like granular in their data as Facebook is, and I think that has a lot to do with it too.
And it's worth mentioning, if we are going to, kind of criticize YouTube and Twitter, it is worthy of mentioning that Facebook obviously deserves that type of criticism as well. It was mentioned during the hearing yesterday about the Christchurch mass shooting.
Yep.
You could still find it apparently on Facebook. They mentioned that yesterday. Also, there are a variety of issues with child exploitation that they really hammered Zuckerberg on, and they said, you've got to do a much better job with this. So that's the problem with a lot of these social media sites is that they're kind of these open platforms, and a lot of the stuff that ends up bubbling up in them can be extremely problematic.
Well, it's also funny that that's kind of Zuckerberg's argument against the antitrust criticisms.
How so?
Oh yes, that they have, because they have all the resources to fight these problems.
Oh yeah.
Right. If you break us up, then we're not going to be able to fight this. Look at Twitter; they can't do anything because they're tiny.
Yeah, I mean,
which is
it's an interesting argument.
It's a dubious argument for me. It's a little bit like, I don't know, like we know better than you. We need all this power and resource to fix these problems. I don't know if that's necessarily the case.
Yeah. More questions.
More questions. Here's a good one to kind of to riff on. Let's go ahead and give a rating or a score per se to our beloved congressional candidates yesterday. How many of them do you think Zuckerberg's answers actually landed on?
Well, you watched the whole thing, so you're probably the best equipped to answer.
Right. So in the 6 hours of
percentage-wise, how many sailed clean over their heads, and how many actually are going to have good results?
Right. So so there were dozens of folks that spoke, and each of them only got 5 minutes. So in general, they were kind of scolding him and barraging him with things that they thought about, like, I think this, or you should do that, or I don't like this about Libra.
So fewer questions and more just like accusations.
Correct.
And just proclamations.
Right.
It's a lot of political theater.
Yeah, it is.
Well, that was their opportunity to really get their words in, and anytime they felt like Zuckerberg was filibustering them, they would interrupt and say, my time, or like taking my time back. Yeah, and like basically just shut him up and say, like, we get it that you're one of the world's richest people, but this is our house. And,
well, I think that's the frustrating thing is like all this grandstanding and all this talk. I mean, I don't know if it's going to lead to anything. Right?
No, and that was the point at the end too. I think I forget
it was McHenry.
Yeah,
it was a Republican. McHenry basically said, like, I don't know that we learned anything from this. I would probably, I think that's a pretty harsh argument from the 6 hours of testimony. I think a lot of the lawmakers got the opportunity to go and at least say their piece about, here are our concerns about Libra, where they're really concerned about how it might influence the dollar, how it might support terrorism, child exploitation, all sorts of other issues like that. But did any of these arguments really land on Zuckerberg? I would probably say Congresswoman Beatty She had the most effective arguments of anybody, where she was talking about diversity hiring at Facebook, where it seemed Zuckerberg was wholly unprepared to answer those questions, where she said, how many lawyers, outside lawyers do you hire that are from diverse organizations? How many contractors? How many vendors? And he was, I don't have the answer to those. I don't have the answer to those. He seemed completely like on unsure footing on that situation. And she was saying, maybe if you did a better job having diverse voices, you wouldn't have so many problems. So I think she really, that was probably one of the strongest back and forths I'd seen. I know everybody was waiting for AOC, but I didn't think AOC really landed a strong punch that time around. I know she has previously.
She didn't ask anything about Libra, right?
No, she was specifically talking about political ads, like misleading political ads, and you know, it was for political theater. I'm sure a lot of people
I missed the
were
AOC
focusing on
segment though. But like, did Zuck did he just repeat what he said the previous week, or
pretty much?
Okay,
yeah,
right.
there wasn't a lot of new stuff there, so it was more that AOC being high wattage. Everybody was like, what's she gonna say? But I don't think she landed a punch, honestly.
The interesting thing about her exchange is that she she crowdsourced questions on Twitter.
Yeah.
Right?
And we actually submitted questions ourselves.
Yes, she did not. She didn't use them. She didn't use them. I confirmed that she did not use our questions, but we'll keep trying.
AFC, if you're watching, we'll keep submitting questions.
Yan asks, is YouTube even really considered a social media? If it is, then how are... Oh, shoot, I lost the screen. If it is, then how are competition between Facebook and YouTube? Will they coexist with each other, given that Facebook keeps trying to compete with everybody with Facebook Watch and whatnot? How are they going to coexist in the relative near future?
Yeah, YouTube is 100% a social network, I think. Facebook is trying to compete, but they're really not doing a good job. I mean, Facebook Watch.
They're different though, right?
Yeah.
I know Facebook wants to become more like YouTube, and it's not really working. But Facebook is dominant for different reasons than YouTube is dominant, right? Like, it's a social network, but it's also a media player, right? Like the biggest media player in the world. But because it's not like people connect with each other necessarily on YouTube, right?
Comments,
I guess.
Sharing videos, but
right. Both of them have tried to do.
It is different.
That's the thing. They're very. I'm not saying they're not. It's not a social network, but they approach things very differently, right? It's why both. Both are relatively dominant in their respective fields with advertising. So.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but both of them have also tried to do like scripted shows, like more higher spec scripted stuff. Like that's what Facebook Watch is for, and I haven't seen that be successful
although
yet.
YouTube has the Karate Kid.
I have to
Cobra
watch
Kai.
Cobra
People
Kai.
like that? Is it
It's
good?
like the most watched. Isn't
Apparently
like the most
that
watched
one's really
scripted
successful.
show? Well, they say it's the most watched scripted show on YouTube, but I don't know. I think they gave some numbers, and they're actually pretty impressive.
Right,
but
people don't go on
generally,
YouTube
it's
for
a pretty
that.
terrible track record on both sides in terms of scripted premium content.
Yeah.
Remember when we used to be on Facebook Live?
Yeah.
For a hot second.
Yeah, we were on
that
for...
was fun.
Was it like a month? How long was that?
That's when we started. We were on Facebook
we actually
Live.
started on Facebook Live, and then we switched over to YouTube. We're like, that YouTube thing, that's not going to take off. Yeah. We should stick with Facebook.
I want to know what all of your highlights from yesterday's testimony were. Anybody have any good one-shots in there?
Oh, I think we went over quite a few of them.
Yeah.
So Maxine Waters' intro, I thought was really, really strong. Beatty, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that name. That one was a really strong back and forth. There was also the guy that talked about Zuckbucks. I think it was a Democrat named Sherman, where he basically described Libra as a sophisticated burglary tool, and then he had like up on the projector screen a dollar bill with Mark Zuckerberg's face on it, and it said Zuckbucks or Zuckbuck, and whatever. There was just a moment of fine levity during the 6 hours where my eyes were bleeding. So
and then Maxine Waters, I think, asked the question that we all asked, which is, with all these problems going on, why are you even doing this?
Yeah, totally. And I think that was really a very smart way to set the table.
Yeah.
And to their credit, a lot of the questions were about Libra. And a lot of the questions were very sophisticated and specific about how are you going to run this? How are you going to ensure that it's actually going to be functional? And those questions are much, much harder to answer now that MasterCard, MasterCard, Visa, and PayPal have stepped away, because those are the payment processors that have all the institutional knowledge about kind of avoiding fraudulent or problematic payments.
I was curious, like, in the minds of, I mean, you've covered Visa and MasterCard in particular, well, PayPal as well, but like at the beginning, like what went in their minds when they were getting into this initiative?
My impression is, I don't have any like inside info on this, but my impression is that, you know, there's another big tech company that's doing a big project. Right. We don't want to be left behind.
Okay.
We don't want to be on the dock while this ship is sailing away. So we're going to at least join on board and see how this goes. And ultimately, I think they realized it was way riskier and way more problematic and getting so much more blowback than they anticipated.
Right.
Visa and MasterCard especially, and PayPal.
I mean, they're pretty conservative companies.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah. I also think that Facebook is kind of positioning Libra as for, you know, more of the developing world. And I think that's a market that they want to be in.
Yeah, for sure.
Visa and MasterCard.
Yeah, I mean, Visa and MasterCard want to be anywhere anybody is making a transaction. So yeah, that's definitely the point there. But yeah, I think they saw the writing on the walls that this was going to be a difficult slog. Zuckerberg stuck to his guns and was like, look, I have an important position in the world, you know, and I'm going to use that position to try to do good. Like, it was a very like idealistic do-goodery response. And he even told a congressman, he was like, I would hope that you would want me to do that kind of thing. But there were so many concerns and questions about what exactly Libra would be that they weren't really buying it. They were like, okay, that's a pretty naive way of looking at this. This could go really negative, kind of like how Facebook exploded and became negative too.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a very realistic possibility that we'll never see Libra come to light of day.
Yes.
Were there any initial projections, though, from economists out there as to what the potential impact of the introduction of a Facebook currency, cryptocurrency, what that would have been on current economic landscape?
Well, so here's another question. I mean, is Libra really a cryptocurrency? And I've heard people say no, it's not.
Zuckerberg kept saying that it was a payment, it was like a transaction vehicle or a payment network as opposed to a cryptocurrency. I think that's semantics.
Well, I mean, Facebook's really kind of leaned hard into the cryptocurrency angle. Just, I don't know, maybe they think it sounds more innovative and more, you know, future looking, but
yeah. I think the most promising thing, again, what Zuckerberg said was, you know, being able to transfer money anywhere around the world extremely cheaply, instantaneously, like a text message. And that sounds really cool. But the problem is that there's a reason payments are the way that they are. And there's a lot of like, you know, a lot of hurdles in making payments because a lot of governments.
Well, there are a lot of checks and there's checks and balances, right, to make sure there isn't fraudulent schemes or things can't be abused.
Terrorist funding,
or
there's all kinds of reasons why there are all these checks and balances in the system. And, you know, Zuckerberg could have arguably said, look, the US dollar can be used for funding certain things like that too, because it's not like you guys are tracking the dollar. And I think he was smart to not bring that up.
Yeah.
But, you know, dollars can be used in a similar fashion when it's actually like the hard cash. But I think creating it as a digital currency that's global could potentially make that even easier for bad actors to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There was another interesting moment. I forget who said it, but somebody asked Zuckerberg if he would be comfortable leaving his daughters their inheritance in Libra.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, and he ultimately said yes.
He kind of hemmed and hawed, but he said yes.
Yeah, he ultimately said yes because he was like, it's backed. Every Libra is backed by like actual currency.
Right.
So he said, but it was kind of funny that like he seemed unprepared for that response. Yeah. And was like, what initially was just like, what kind of, he was like the look on his face. I was thinking like, he's like, what kind of idiot would leave their inheritance in Libra? And then he was like, no, let's answer the way I should.
Let's double down on this. Yeah.
Probably soon. We don't know anything immediately, but there was he went to Capitol Hill last year. He went this year. This is probably going to be a continuation.
Wasn't he there just like a little while ago? Not for a public hearing. I mean, he's gone to DC a lot.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like, I don't think this is the last time he'll be dragged before Congress.
I think he's definitely gotten a lot of attention on the hearings circuit, whereas and Sundar Pichai is another one that also had to sit through one of these. Like there are a handful of others that haven't as much. Jeff Bezos is one of them. I think Tim Cook did have to sit through one of these.
Yeah, but like yes.
Yeah, when is Bezos getting his day?
We'll find out. I mean, like, apparently he's trying to like control all of Washington D.C., so he's avoiding it at all costs. So I don't know, but there's a lot more attention going on at big tech. So it wouldn't surprise me if something like that were to eventually happen.
I mean, with the elections ramping up too, it's just there's just going to be more scrutiny in this sector. So, yeah.
So what will be the thing that ultimately ropes Zuckerberg back in? We were talking about how they're perpetually tone deaf. They get investigated for privacy concerns. Let's release a home webcam. Everything's going to hell in a handbasket. Let's introduce our own cryptocurrency. What's going to be the next stupid tone deaf thing that Facebook does that gets them in trouble?
It wouldn't surprise me if it was Libra again. It was pretty clear to me from the hearing that the House was extremely concerned about a major tech company like Facebook creating something that could actually threaten the dollar. I mean, like, they take that kind of thing very, very seriously. So, yeah, it might be the next data breach for sure, but I think they're going to be paying very, very close attention to Libra, and they might try to squash it altogether.
I mean, I imagine he might get called up for election or ads or something like that. Again, I mean,
so many things.
With 20, there are so many issues. So, yeah.
I mean, he's definitely going to, it'll have to be something big because he's going to try to send somebody else. Which he's done before.
True.
Like, I think over Cambridge Analytica, he sent Shrep, their CTO, to do.
And he sent David Marcus over Libra
before this.
in July.
He'll try to send somebody else before he actually has to get on the hot seat again. I'm sure he doesn't enjoy it.
I'm sure he doesn't, but at the same time, he's actually gotten pretty good at it.
Well, with repetition, you get better.
Right, exactly. But like,
makes perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was obviously less robotic. He wasn't super defensive. Like I said, I thought he did what he needed to do as far as avoiding any gaffes. It's just like the things that he couldn't prevent were that he just got lit up, and that was because Congress was basically like, we're coming after you.
Yep.
Like, we don't like a lot of
we're
things.
We're not gonna look stupid again.
Right.
Again.
That too.
So, yeah.
I mean, like, what do you need to do to be successful in like something like this? You just have to like be polite.
You just sort of take it.
Take the beating.
Not say anything that'll become a headline.
Not do anything that goes viral.
Yeah.
Right. Try to avoid any kind of like weird or unusual or awkward or potentially viral moments. Right.
Right. Again, the best case scenario was the last time he was there, when the Congress members seemed woefully unprepared.
I think the we sell ads, that little moment there, that would have been considered a mistake, right? Like, he probably for him because like that clearly set off Congress like doing their homework and like coming back.
That's a good point. I didn't think of it that way. I kind of felt like that was him showing that they didn't understand how his business functioned.
It was, but I think it also like
the long-term implications.
The long-term implication was like, okay, we're not doing that again.
We're not going to let you dunk on us.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not how these things work.
Like, I think if it just continued to sort of take his licks and whatever, like, it would have been a lot less. Like, this time around, I think the impact would have been
That's an interesting insight. I hadn't thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right that they did not want to have one of those viral moments be against them, because ultimately they're the ones that call the hearing. They're the ones that said it.
They looked so bad after that first hearing.
It was pretty bad. Yeah. It was pretty bad, and it was like 2 days of hearings, and in both he just like walked away feeling pretty damn good about himself, I would say.
Right.
My hot take is that Congress didn't actually learn anything. They just let their kids and grandkids watch the live web stream and then would send SMS text messages to grandma and grandpa to try to help get them through the questioning.
Entirely possible.
Wait, to grandma and grandpa?
Grandma and grandpa are the Congress members.
Oh, got it. Sorry. Yeah, I missed that. Sorry.
I'd
What's
be impressed
a Mimi?
I'd be impressed if those grandkids know are thoroughly aware of what cryptocurrency are.
I know.
That's
okay.
grandkids on Facebook.
Sure.
Are they?
True.
Oh, definitely not. No, they're all on Instagram.
I was gonna say Snap, probably not Snap.
TikTok. I don't know. I'll just keep
Definitely
saying words.
TikTok. Yeah.
I like this question from Eric before we shut things down. How do you avoid going viral? Well, ask any number of the celebrities in the past 2 years who have gotten taken down for some, let's call it distasteful tweeting. I think that's how you avoid going viral.
I mean, sometimes you can't. Obviously, like it's a lot of this stuff is unintentional, and I think that's part of why it becomes viral. But I don't know. Try to be as boring as possible. I guess.
Yes,
Pretty much.
and repeat your talking points.
Yeah.
Which we as journalists don't like. So
I know.
don't do that.
Yeah. Wait a minute. We're just giving everybody the roadmap.
Exactly. No, go viral. Go viral.
How do you
At least just go
avoid-
viral when you're talking to us.
Avoid giving us things to write about.
Repeat your talking points to everyone else, but when you're talking to us, try
Be real. Come
be
on.
cool.
Let's have
Yeah,
a real
be
conversation.
real.
Yeah.
Keep your PR people out of it. Obviously, it's a terrible idea if you want to avoid it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, speaking of going viral, why don't you guys go ahead and throw a like and subscribe and all that jazz and tell your friends all about us. We're here on YouTube, we're on Periscope, we're on CNET.com. Maybe more places soon. Hell, I don't know. I can't keep track of anything. But we are done for the week.
TikTok.
And thanks, everybody, for your patience once again. And Ben, go ahead and send us home.
Yes, and I would like to start by saying, way to go, BVG, for fixing our technical difficulties.
Yes.
It was not easy. So well done. He spent 2 days really marshaling
Basically
this back
rebuilding
together.
our entire system.
Yes.
From
we're
The
very-
one we just
we're
built
very,
a few
very
months
lucky to
ago.
have
Yes,
you.
yeah, no, it's been fantastic, yeah.
All right. Anyway, BVG needs to take a nap now. So thanks, everyone, for making this week work. For you at home, we'd love it if you subscribed and rang the bell so you can join us on the regular here weekday mornings. But we're off till Monday, so have a great weekend, everybody. For the Daily Charge, I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Rich Nieva.
Thanks, everybody, for joining.